Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome in, everybody, to another edition of Sports Daily. We are through the Major League Baseball trade deadline. We are through the Pac-12 big meeting with very little information coming out of it. We've got lots to talk about today as we get ready for, a midweek edition. I'm Jacob Albracht alongside Tommy Castor. Chad Chambers here with us, manning that IHOP hotline, which is open on the at 869-1240. We appreciate everybody listening to the program. We appreciate everybody watching the program that's on our video streams, soon to be on Twitch, I think, is the next the big next frontier. So we're excited about that. Working on that for you. Glad to be here with you. And we sort of start with a little bit of breaking news around the area that might impact folks driving around. So we're going to let Jad get us caught up on what's happening out in the world right now around Wichita, because it may affect your drive.
Well, the part specifically that's going to affect your drive is if you happen to be wanting to go eastbound on Kellogg, and it's officially between Hillside and Woodlawn, but the backup goes pretty much all the way back to I-135. Westbound, I'd continue to avoid it as well. It does look like it's open, and they are letting traffic through there, but it'd probably be best to avoid that. But eastbound, definitely Kellogg between Hillside and Oliver. The police have that shut down. You're not able to get through there.
And we've already seen a wreck there, I believe.
Yes, we have.
During that stoppage. So just be careful out there if you're in that area. We won't speculate as to why here unless we get some official confirmation. But just, heads up out there. Be careful and drive safe, everybody. Heads up, eyes up. Here we go. All right, Tommy, the trade deadline goes, and the Royals make some moves. They trade Yarborough, which was probably pretty critical with the recent stretch he's had. They do not trade Carlos Hernandez. He's got a lot of control left, more than I had realized. He steps into the closer's role because they did get Scott Barlow moved. They moved Barlow, they moved Yarborough, they moved some pieces. No Salvi. That trade didn't happen. The Hernandez trade didn't happen. But I think for all intents and purposes, they were active. They didn't get everybody done, and probably they valued Carlos Hernandez with that control just a little bit, and didn't want to give him up for nothing.
Yeah, I get that, and I understand the reasons why they moved Yarborough. I understand, obviously, the reasons why they moved Scott Barlow. We've talked about it at length. I feel like, they were very busy up until the trade deadline, like right at the trade deadline, making moves. It got to the point like 30 minutes before the deadline, I thought, are they going to do anything? I mean, they announced the Yarborough move earlier in the day, but those relievers that we had been speculating on for quite a while, Up until just a few minutes before the deadline was up, they hadn't moved either one of them. They ended up moving Barlow to the Padres. The Padres seem to be going all in, feel like they can compete for a division title and make a playoff push. So they didn't sell; they were buyers, and they bought Scott Barlow. Carlos Hernandez sticks around. He's going to remain a Royal. A little bit interesting to me that happened because I feel like he has currently maybe more value than Scott Barlow does. And I feel like you probably could have gotten a good return. I feel like, or at least, maybe an average return for Carlos Hernandez. But that didn't happen. They moved to, a couple of pitchers that they feel like they can get some good young talent in return for. So all in all, I would say, I was really not pleased with the way the Royals attacked the trade deadline time period with Nicky Lopez a few days ago. I feel a little bit more okay about it today.
Yeah, they got off to a bad start, basically trading for guys who are DFA'd, and you don't want to see that. But I don't know how much value people. I just never thought that they were in a real position of strength. And that was a part of the dread that has set in for the Royals early in this season was they just don't have anybody there. They don't have anybody really to trade. They have one all-star caliber player that's no doubt about it. I suppose two was Salvador Perez, but he's on the back end of that. But it's Bobby Witt Jr. And it's like, man, what are they even going to be able to do? Right? Like what can you even do right now if you're the Royals? I think what will be interesting is the offseason. I think they have the ability to trade some pieces this offseason for sure. Carlos Hernandez would be a candidate, I think, there again, or really just about anybody as teams begin to reshuffle. And I don't know what the solution is. I think in the short term, all they can do is spend a little bit of money. We just haven't really seen the development. I mean, Tommy, they could have, in theory, traded everybody, right? Like everybody besides Bobby Witt Jr. honestly was eligible to be traded. And they held on to a lot of pieces. And it's just like, what's the appropriate value? I don't know how much anybody valued these guys. I don't want the Royals to just give players away. Here's where I don't agree with the masses of like Royals Twitterverse or whatever, is that, we just got to get rid of everybody. Just get rid of them all. Well, not if you're not going to get anything for them. Everybody wanted to do that last year too. And we cautioned, hey, if you call up a AAA lineup, they're not going to be very good. And lo and behold, they're not very good. You don't just give away everything for nothing. Now, you can be aggressive, right? And trading Carlos Hernandez would have been an aggressive move, but only if there's something that you're getting back. If you're trading him for a player that just got DFA'd or for some cash considerations, well, then no, we don't want that. But he's a controllable asset. And so it's hard to know the market. You'd like to see, any sort of value come back from some of the pieces they've been waiting on for a long time. But Tommy, the reality is, if you don't have a trade partner, you don't just do it to do it. Like, you have to get something back, right? These aren't expensive players. There's no need to offset salaries or payroll. Nicky Lopez, outside of the Nicky Lopez deal, it looks like there was potentially a Salvador Perez deal, maybe, that was close to getting done that they didn't do. Again, I don't know. Here's what I would guess, Tommy, is that if they did a Salvador Perez deal, it would have been very much a payroll dump. And that would have not been perceived well, because I just don't think there was anybody willing to give up a ton of, on the field assets for Salvador Perez at this point. So, yeah, it cuts both ways. And I know people wanted like this fire sale, but again, like, if you're not going to get anything back, there are worse players out there than what the Royals run out there. I promise. So you can't just get it, or the cycle never ends. Like, at some point you have to continue to have some optimism that some of these guys will play better, and you just have to draft and develop well for 2 or 3 years to give yourself any kind of chance. There's just no other way to do it, and that sucks because it's been so long, but that's it. Like, they were never going to come into the season and be the Mets, right, where they can just reload their farm system in 1 year. Not going to happen.
Of course, I've said this before, sentimentally didn't want to lose Salvador Perez. and to an extent didn't want to trade Zach Greinke either because there's the emotional connection with both of those guys. But that's sentimentally. And knowing the state of this franchise, I actually kind of like that JJ Piccolo was exploring trades for Salvador Perez and Zach Greinke. No deal, materialized for either one of them. It sounded like there were a handful of teams interested in Perez. The Marlins were interested, and Perez is, from the Miami area. So that would have made a little bit of geographical sense. But ultimately the return, it seems like, wasn't good enough for either one of those guys for the Royals to make a move. And then there was also the concern that, neither one of those guys would waive their no trade clause. But I like the idea that they were exploring that. To me, that shows that JJ Piccolo and the front office, who are much maligned, they're beleaguered. Everybody gives them, a ton of grief over a lot that's happened, some in their control, some outside of their control. It shows me that they're at least wanting to be proactive, and, not just, sit back and say, oh, we love Salvi and we love Greinke and we're not going to move them, even if it's for the good of the franchise moving forward. So I like that they explored it. Again, they weren't able to get any deals done for those guys. And that's, I guess, maybe for the best. But at least I like the idea that they were trying to pursue that.
I mean, it's fine. Again, like, you only make trades if they're worth making. You don't just make them. That was the issue. Like, I don't understand what people don't understand, that there isn't this wave of prospects coming up that are going to be great players. Like, it's a harsh reality because you're not good at the big league level either right now. But if there's nothing behind the bad players, like, you can't just expect players without the ability to come up and all of a sudden be good. That's what we're dealing with this year. Like, that's it. So what can you do? Well, you can build around Bobby Witt Jr., and you can hope Salvador Perez has a couple good years left in him. And you can try to effectively bring in some free agents creatively to get something done. I don't know. And I know that, I mean, that's probably not happening. Like, that's again, that's where my frustration comes from this, because I just don't see any easy way out. And trading all of your players that have any big league experience is not the answer if there's not anything of value coming back. Trading a fringe major league, 4A type player for another fringe major league 4A type player, what does that do? Like, it's those guys aren't going to all of a sudden take this developmental step at 25 years old and be superstars. I mean, it happens sometimes, but not that often. So you just have to kind of keep your nose to the grindstone a little bit. And you'll get Pasquantino back next year and Bobby Witt Jr., and you go creatively, throw some money at some, mid-level free agents, hope that they can, the funny thing is, Tommy, for 3 years, they sort of had the right path, right? Benintendi and, Carlos Santana and some guys they've actually been able to get some value for at the trade deadline. They just haven't got anything right in the developmental side, right? Like, so they haven't identified any of the right people or developed them the right way, but that is the way out for them. That's the only way out. They just haven't got it done at all at the minor league level in player development. So there's nobody there, right? Bobby Witt Jr. was a can't miss prospect. I mean, he just was. He fell into their lap. Other than that, you've got Pasquantino, and you got some guys that might be big leaguers, but you really don't have anything. There's nothing to be excited about.
Yeah, 4 of the 5 guys that the Royals traded in this entire trade period had more than 1 year of control left, team control left on their contract. So they weren't moving guys that were entering free agency this offseason. They were trading guys that they still have control over. And I think that shows that they know that at least the guys they moved, aren't going to be a part of their long-term plans, even though they've got team control, for more than 1 year on 4 of those 5 guys. Nicky Lopez, Jose Cuas, Ryan Yarborough, and Scott Barlow all had more than 1 year of team control left on their contracts. But they knew that, now's the time to essentially blow it up and try to get some people, some guys in even in the lower level minor league system to start to build that farm team, that farm system back up a little bit. So, none of the guys that they got back, you look at and you're like, oh, like they're going to be big time players in this organization long term, but it's a foundation. It's a start. One other thing to keep in mind too is that if you look at the Royals depth chart in their entire major league and minor league system, there are major log jams at a couple of positions, but then there are other positions that are just absolutely open for the taking. And so they need to sort of average that out a little bit. And I know Bobby Witt Jr. is different, but they've got to try to find a way to fill some of those positions that they need desperate help in. And maybe they can move some of the guys that, there's a log jam at. So I get it. I understand it. I feel like, again, I'm not ready to sign off on my approval of JJ Piccolo, but my opinion of the way the Royals handled the trade deadline, I think was improved somewhat at the end yesterday, from it being super negative after Nicky Lopez to now feeling like, okay, like maybe they understand the assignment. They understand what they're going to have to do. It's going to be painful. It's not going to be remarkable at first, but at least it's going to be something to at least start that process.
So it sounds like here's one that I thought would happen yesterday. Salvador Perez. So we saw the Rangers trade for Austin Hedges. Their all-star catcher Jonah Heim is out for a little while, and the Rangers last minute went and grabbed Austin Hedges. I thought for a second, I was like, man, they kind of need a catcher. They're struggling offensively. They can move him around. I thought for a second the Rangers may make a play for Salvador Perez. And I just wonder what those conversations were like for the Royals, as the Rangers reportedly did check in on Perez, as did, the White Sox, according to Ann Rogers at MLB.com. The White Sox did, and there was a third team, I think, that checked in on him too.
The Marlins.
But yeah, so again, I think it would have been, if you trade Salvador Perez, you just can't trade him as a salary dump, right? Like you have to get something of value back for Salvador Perez. So if all they were going to be able to accomplish with that is somebody to take on his salary, that would have bothered me greatly, because that's not the right message to send to as frustrated as people might be. Again, it goes back to that. Well, you got to just trade everybody. No, you don't. You do not need to just trade everybody if there's not anything out there coming back to you.
But at least them exploring it shows that they're not just going to be like, oh, it's emotional, we can't move you. No, like if it's the right fit.
Or that they were just trying to dump his salary. Because that was the perception belt, with Nicky Lopez. It was like, oh my God, they're salary dumping now. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, right. So at least, and that's why I say maybe it is posturing. I have no idea how serious those talks were with any one of those teams. Maybe there wasn't anything legitimate. But again, at least showing the intention of let's have conversations. Very little is going to be off the table, probably outside of Bobby Witt Jr. Let's have conversations and see where they go. If the return's not good enough, then don't move them. But I at least like the willingness for them to talk about it.
So the two trades real quick before we move on to maybe elsewhere in baseball and some other storylines today. The Barlow and Yarbrough trades came yesterday and probably were the biggest ones they made outside of Chapman a long time ago. They got a top 10 prospect in their system immediately. So Henry Williams is one of the pitchers that came over in the Barlow trade, and MLB.com slides him in as their number 9 prospect. So that gets you a top 10 prospect in your system. Yeah. That's not insignificant, right? Like for perspective's sake, I would be surprised if Scott Barlow was ever a top 10 prospect in anybody's system, right? So the other trade, they get an infielder named Devin Mann out of the Yarbrough trade, who slides into their top 30, which is always 26 is where MLB.com puts him. That's always sort of where you're looking. That doesn't move the needle a ton for me. But, those project as possible big league players. And then they also got kind of throw in project players in both of those deals, right? Guys that were, for whatever reason, still had some upside, but needed, some different opportunities. So it wasn't horrible. There was never anything there to me. I don't think that they were ever going to make a blockbuster, because Bobby Witt Jr., again, for me, should not be on the table right now. Like not even not even in a conversation yet because he's going to get better. He still has control. And if you trade Bobby Witt Jr., you want it to be the Juan Soto type trade, right? That the Nationals made at that point. Hopefully they don't have to do that. And hopefully he can become their guy moving forward. But in a year or two in the offseason, when teams don't have things set up and he looks like he's one of the great young players in the game, if you want to explore it and somebody wants to overpay, okay, fine. But not now. It never made sense. But everybody else really in the offseason is going to be available. I mean, I don't think they have any interest in trading Pasquantino coming off an injury, but so outside of those two, everybody else is going to be available.
And by the way, the Royals won last night on a balk off against the Mets in extra innings. They've won 4 in a row. I don't know if they've got something cooking right now or not, but it feels good to say the Royals have won 4 in a row. We've not been able to say that this season one time.
It will help tremendously if they can win some games and just give, just erase the feeling of dread, right? Like, just win some games, be competitive, be enjoyable to watch, give us something to look for in this second half. And then it's going to be a really interesting offseason for this organization and the owner who's trying to sell a new stadium. You want to throw the fans a bone? Go spend a little money. Go spend $30-40 million in the offseason and bring some pieces in just to make the on-field product better and see what happens. Trade deadline has come and gone. We saw Justin Verlander traded, some other deals. We'll go back at some point in the show today and just see, like, who do we think got the most better, got the betterest, right? Who helped themselves the most at the trade deadline? Training camp news as well. Another significant injury, Cooper Kupp. Got an update on him as he left practice yesterday. All kinds of things to talk about. Radio silence continues for Chris Jones and the Chiefs. It's Sports Daily. It's a Wednesday. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. It's Jacob Albracht. It's Tommy Castor. Tommy, we get the Pac-12 meetings yesterday. That the last-ditch meeting effort. Nothing officially coming out of that, but a lot of rumors, right? And the consensus sort of rumor is that the deal is what we suspected, somewhere between like 20 and 25 a year, all streaming on Apple. Yikes. That's that's not what they were hoping for. Not what they were hoping for.
No, not at all. And knowing that, at least the rumor is that the vast majority, if not 100% of the package is streaming and not linear. I mean, I don't know how any of these Pac-12 schools will want to go for that. Now, the rumor is that Apple or whatever the streaming partner is could potentially have incentives in place where,
Sure,
depending on the number of subscribers and people that, jump in, the schools can make more money, blah, 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 blah. But here's the thing. And I read an article, and I don't remember honestly who wrote it, but I read an article that talked about how the Pac-12 and the member schools that are left may be pretty weary of doing that, because that was the pitch to them when the Pac-12 network came along, that, they would have their own network, and depending on subscribers, because it wasn't a part of basic cable, depending on subscribers, the schools would be able to make more money. Nobody subscribed to it. Like, none of the schools made any money off of it. There was no incentives, that nothing kicked in for them to make extra money based on subscribers. So knowing that, again, I'm not sure how any of these member schools are going to get fired up at all about taking advantage of this deal and accepting it.
Well, you also have to know, like, the reason that networks aren't clamoring and going up is because viewership isn't going to be tremendous. That's been the Pac-12's issue for a long time, is that, again, out on the West Coast, you might go surf, sit on the beach. Like, it's just never been like the lifeblood of the community in the same way. And that's not a knock on the Pac-12. It's just the reality of where they are. And now you've got the NFL in town with two teams and all these things. I just don't know what people are clinging to and why they are so greatly. We've seen very prominent writers continue. I think Dennis Dodd, one of them, continuing this. Nobody wants to be that final blow, but you cannot get left behind. And like, there's never been a bigger appetite for change than right now. Like, if you really are worried about, maybe it's donors or alumni or whoever that's like really saddened by this, it's happened everywhere. Like, there's never been a more, I wouldn't imagine, accepting public to, we're just sort of shuffling right now in college sports. It's just the way it is. I don't know how quickly, that's been the issue here. At least now it appears that we have some clarity on what this deal, the Pac-12 is, and we've known why they were hiding it, right? Like, why they didn't want to talk about it, because it's not very good. It's just not. It's just not a great deal, and it's significantly less than it is for the teams that the Big 12 is interested in, and it's probably far significantly less than a deal that the Big 12 will be able to negotiate in 2031. That's the other part of it too. Like, it's about right now, but it's also about that next one. And if you're sitting and watching what the Big 12 is doing, and it's very clear what the Big 12 is doing with Mexico games and trying to increase a footprint in New York City and adding teams and getting into time zones and increasing the basketball brand and floating out that you might be interested in Gonzaga, it's very clear what they're doing. They're trying to leverage and get a massive deal when the next one comes up. You've got this path to make more money right now, and you have this path to make significantly more money down the road. Because if you're if you're Arizona or Utah or whatever, the Big Ten or the SEC is never going to want you. So are you really confident that if you stick with the Pac-12 for now, it's going to get better than what the Big 12 is going to get down the road?
No,
not unless there's some merger with the ACC. I mean, that would be the only thing, right? Like,
I would say that's logical, right? Like, you could position it and brand it as the Atlantic and Pacific Conference and put it together that way. And you've got one division and another division. Like, that would make sense logically. But I mean, again, I talked about it yesterday. The Pac-12 and George Kliavkoff, they've never approached this logically. I don't know about the ACC, but they have never approached this entire situation logically. Ross Dellinger from Yahoo Sports reported on all of this yesterday, and he said that the Pac-12 approached NBC 3 different times over the last 12 months. 3 different times, including as recently as a month ago. So all of this posturing and positioning about we've got a deal, it's going to be great, believe me, they didn't have anything. They approached NBC, according to Pac-12 insiders, with a significantly low offer, and that's according to Ross Dellinger from Yahoo Sports. The quote from the source that he has in the Pac-12 said, "We were looking for a savior, but no one seemed to want to step up because there's not a product for them. There's not a product that will drive ratings for them. It's as simple as that." And so I don't blame NBC for being like, get out of here with this. Like, we've already got the Big Ten game of the week that we're going to put on in prime time. We've got other things that we're doing. We have no desire, no need to get in bed with the Pac-12, a weakened Pac-12, really where there's not a bright future with them.
It's just, again, is there going to be anything there now? No. We've suspected that, and the schools have to know that. So and what negotiating power or leverage does the Pac-12 have right now? Here's
Nothing.
the other reality of the situation, and this just takes like a little bit of inference. If the Pac-12 didn't have the firepower to get a better deal, how long has it been? 4 months ago? Why would they have more leverage to get a better deal now? Like, what would motivate a network to step up now and be like, oh, you know what? The Pac-12 is really, we were wrong, right?
We were wrong. Like, it's weaker than what it was.
It's
4 months ago.
Only going to be weaker. There's no path for the Pac-12 to be stronger because they refused expansion. They should have done what the Big 12 did and immediately added teams when USC and UCLA left. Immediately. Yep. Like whatever combination of teams they could find, whether it was, Memphis and San Diego State and Boise State and UNLV and SMU, they should have immediately added teams so they could take that to the negotiating table. There's literally nothing that they can do now that's going to present a stronger product to the TV networks. Like, what are you going to do now that you couldn't do 4 months ago? So I don't know. And again, that goes back to my point a few minutes ago. I don't know what is having these schools cling to, well, we don't want to be the final straw. You're not the final straw. You're not. Like, there are 2 very obvious choices in front of you, and one goes right off a cliff, and one sees a bright future, at least at minimum, potentially. But it's becoming, unless the landscape, Tommy, changes considerably, and I'm an optimist, so I'm going to pretend like that won't happen with the economy and all these things. The Big 12 is going to be able to increase its value on the next deal. Can it jump up with the SEC and the Big 10 right now? That's what they're shooting for. Can it? I think it's possible. Will it? I think it's less likely than it is likely, but at minimum, it's going to be better than what they have now. So you're at least continuing to trend up. So it just seems like such an obvious decision for these schools that the Big 12 wants to make. Maybe it's a little more difficult for Oregon and Washington because they're holding out hope for the Big 10. I don't know. Quite frankly, I don't care. I would love to have them if they were going to be all-in members, but I don't care if they're not, because I think there's another great option for the Big 12 to approach this with if they decide to go that way with the other 4 corner schools, which, it's funny, that has been the rumor from day one, is these 4 corner schools, and now it's back to the forefront of like, yeah, this is still probably the most likely. I think it was being reported that way from the beginning, Tommy, because the Big 12 behind the scenes probably made it known that's who we'd be interested in.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's what we're shooting for.
And those seem to be, some of the most vulnerable schools left in the Pac-12. I understand that not one individual school wants to be seen as the one that kills the conference. I get that.
I don't.
But whatever. I get the perception around it. But you don't have to worry about just one. You've got 3 together, and at that point you can kind of, deflect and say, there's a lot of different ways you can spin this. If I am George Kliavkoff, the first thing I'm doing is making a phone call to the ACC. What can we do? Is there a way that we can salvage our conferences? By the way, Florida State, their chair on the board of trustees, did an interview, I believe it was yesterday, talking about how confident he feels in their future, regardless of what conference they're in. I think that they're on their way out. They're probably on the way to the SEC. Clemson probably is on their way out. So they're getting poached also. I think you can make a pretty strong argument to have those two conferences merge, and then you have an East Division and a West Division. That being said, going back to what I said a few minutes ago, I don't have a whole lot of faith, not necessarily in the ACC, because I don't really know their inner workings, but this whole thing has been bungled so badly by the Pac-12. I don't have a lot of faith that Kliavkoff and the member schools that are left are going to do the right thing.
There is no right thing. What is the right thing? Again, like what is the option here for the Pac-12? The Pac-12's option
it's to merge. It's to merge with the ACC.
Yeah, but
that's
not only if the ACC wants to. And I don't think the ACC knows what it's going to do yet. And the ACC, it's very similar, even probably more amplified to what the Big 12. The Big 12 knew what it needed to do, merge with the Pac-12. But the Pac-12 wasn't in position or ready to do that because at that point, USC and UCLA hadn't left them yet. The ACC, it's similar now. The Pac-12 probably wants to merge with the ACC, and the ACC is like, why? No. But ultimately, they're going to have teams leave too, and we'll look back on it and be like, yeah, that's what they should have done, because it will be what they should have done. But they won't do it yet. And theirs is a little trickier too, because their media deal is just hard. Like that, ESPN has to be just like old man Mr. Scrooge and his piles of coins laughing at the deal there, because they just can't get out of it where these other conferences have been able to maneuver it a little bit. ACC can't do that. And so at least apparently now, according to every report and lawyer that looks at this or whatever, like they just can't get out. So I don't think that's there. Tommy, it happened. Did you hear it?
Your landline?
Did you hear it?
I hear it right now. Look at that.
Yeah. So
I've never
for
seen
everybody
somebody so
that
excited
just
about
heard
answering a
that noise.
landline.
So everybody that just heard that noise, let me rehash what just happened here on live radio. So a couple of days ago, I don't remember, it was this week we talked about this, right?
I think it was last week.
Maybe it was last week. It was last week. So if you're watching our video stream, I don't want to get my kids, and they're not old enough yet, but they're to the point where like I might go for a walk outside and they're here, and I want them to be able to call us, or if they're with the babysitter and they want to call us, but I'm not getting them a cell phone, and I'd like to hold off on that until they're like 30. So I was like, you know what? Why don't we get them a landline? Like those are still a thing. And I look it up and I'm like, oh, yeah, the landlines are still a thing, right? For a house phone. And so it's like, is this thing, and I've got the base right here where I'm in my basement, is where my studio is at home. And I was like, I wonder if this thing's ever going to ring on air. And there we have it. 6 days
who was
later.
It? Are you going to tell everybody who it was?
Nana. It's
okay.
Nana. Yeah.
All right.
So
you should have answered it and put Nana on the air.
Yeah. Hello, Nana, you're live on the radio. So now I have to figure out how to turn the ringer off for this one down here. I don't know how to do that. I think probably the answer is I'll bring this thing up. I don't know what to do. Anyway, that's what that was. So yay, it happened.
Right.
Somebody called. I wondered if the telemarketers, that was the real question, is like, the telemarketer's going to get this and just mess my day up here. But that's what that ringing was. So, yeah, back to the Pac-12. I don't see the path forward for them. It seems like a matter of time. I have no idea why these schools would wait if that's the offer, because you can make significantly more now and very likely a whole lot more down the road, because the snowball effect of this is, what will the Pac-12, outside of the ACC, what will the Pac-12 be able to do for 2031, which, by the way, is before the ACC deal expires, right? To beat the second Big 12 deal that's coming. That's what makes this, we don't want to be the ones to let them go. Why? Like, you're going to make a potentially bad decision now. It's going to be a bad decision for the next 10 years if you make that decision now. And if the Big 12 has and opening and willing to take you and you don't take it, I don't know how you could justify that to your board of whatever, regions or whatever, whoever you have to sit there and be like, oh, we're going to make, over the life of this thing, we're probably going to make about $100 million less than we would if we go over there. Good
That's a tough
luck.
pill to swallow. Yeah.
Yes,
I
it
just
is.
don't. Financial sense, I mean, they got to get out, and they got to get out now.
Financial exposure, all of it, like all of
Yep.
it. Hey, we're going to be on Apple TV, recruits. You're going to get to play on something that nobody can watch you play. Or you can come over here to this Big 12 school and be on national television almost every game that you play. Okay? Well, it's coming. It's going to happen, right? It will happen. 869-1240 is the number to call. We'll come back. We'll give something away. Get another update from Jad on the traffic situation out there. It's a mess. So we'll get that when we come back as well. More Sports Daily coming for you right after this. All right, welcome back in, everybody. It is Sports Daily right here on KFH. Glad to be here with you. Jad, what is the latest out there with the traffic? I'm trying to keep up as best as I can with our 12 news partners, but I know you've got a direct ear to it. So what is the what's the latest there?
Really no change in the latest. They've got eastbound Kellogg shut down at around Hillside. The backup goes all the way back to I-135. They've got westbound Kellogg shut off at Rock Road, and that's actually starting now to kind of back up past Webb Road at this point. So best just to avoid Kellogg at all if you happen to be on the east side of Wichita, as police continue to work through this issue.
Yeah, and we'll get you. I think they're just looking through some work emails. I think they're going to try to have some sort of like news briefing at 9:30.
Yeah, it looks like it's already happened.
Yeah,
it's they're just pulling up. Okay, so here's what. And sorry, here I'm just I'm doing this in a different way than I normally do. Suspicious device at a business. Evaluating still, and that's what led to the traffic. I'm just seeing here. You can go to, we'll have it online here. KNSS will have it. 12 News will have it. So just avoid the traffic in Kellogg for a little while.
Yeah, avoid Kellogg entirely, both westbound and
eastbound right there. Yeah, both.
Yeah, it's a mess. I mean, it took me, an extra 15 minutes to get to the office today. I took a different way. It's a mess. So just completely avoid Kellogg if you can.
That's the ticket. All right, let's give something away. Let's give away some iced tea today. It's gonna be hot again. Where is relief on the horizon for this heat? But let's give away some iced tea right now to HTO. We'll give away some Wind Surge vouchers in the next hour. But we'll do 2 free cups of iced tea from HTO Wichita East, 21st and 127th out east, and then west, 13th and Tyler. More than 25 flavors. Just unrolling the watermelon refresher mix of the month, which is like a mint watermelon thing. So that's new. And you can get your hands on those. First caller to the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. East or west, coming soon in Derby as well. Very soon. We'll get you a grand opening date when that's happening for our friends opening the store down in Derby. But first caller right now to the IHOP hotline can get their hands on that. All right, Tommy, we've sort of explored here for a little bit. A real quick Chiefs headline. Chris Jones's backup is off the PUP list and practicing today. What do you make of that?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, Tershawn Wharton is being activated, it sounds like, off the PUP list. He had knee surgery last year, was out for the year, wasn't sure if he'd be ready for week 1. Looks like he may be, and that adds another level of intrigue to the entire Chris Jones situation.
Yes, it does. So that headline's out there. We're going to give you very amateur level grades of the Major League Baseball trade deadline. Who are the biggest winners there? The most interesting collective set of moves or things like that. We'll dive into some of the other NFL training camp notes and continue to discuss and keep our eye on this Pac-12 situation. It's all coming for you in hour number 2, plus a Wind Surge giveaway. Sports Daily rolls on right after this.
Radio 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Hey, Shocker fans, want the latest on Wichita State athletics? Let's go right to the source with Shocker AD Kevin Saul.
All right, welcome in, everybody. And joining us from Greece. That's right, Greece. Kevin Saul, Wichita State Athletic Director. You guys just landed, Kevin. Welcome into Sports Daily. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor here for hour number 2. Man, we appreciate it. We weren't sure if you'd be able to connect or not, but we're glad you are.
You know, we're willing to span all kinds of time zones to make this happen, Jacob and Tommy. So thanks for having us on the show.
So you guys are there. You just landed, right? And games begin, I believe, I don't know what the time difference is, but here it would be like 2 days from now. First things first, there's a lot of fires and some crazy stuff happening in Greece. Any of that near you guys or impacting anything on the trip?
No, right now, other than heat, it is warm. Today was actually in the 80s. Last week, I think the high for the week last week was 118. This week it's going to be in the low 100s, and of course it's right by the water, guys. You got all the Greek islands and everything, so the humidity is pretty firm as well. So obviously keeping the guys hydrated. But we left campus yesterday at 9 a.m. Central Time. Had a flight to Atlanta. I think we got into Atlanta about 2:30 Eastern Time, and then hopped on a 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time flight to Athens that landed this morning, Athens time, local time, at 10:35 a.m. And so it was a short night. I think most of our travel party probably got 2 or 3 hours of sleep last night on that plane. And then we got off that plane, actually had to switch carriers to an Aegean flight into Thessaloniki, from Athens to Thessaloniki. So we went through, pulled the bags off, went through security again, but everything was seamless, man. Ryan Hillard and the ops staff have just absolutely crushed it. Our student athletes are having a good time. So it's been a good start to the trip. So we'll do a team dinner tonight. I'm sure everybody will sleep very, very well. And then we've got a city tour tomorrow, team meal. We get into Friday. We've got our first game at 6 p.m. local time, which would be 10 a.m. your guys' time. We're 8 hours ahead against the Thessaloniki All-Stars.
And then Monday and Wednesday of next week, you guys will take on the University of Calgary, just so everybody knows. Games aren't televised. We'll try and keep you apprised. There'll be social media videos. Kevin, I wonder on, like I travel with family and other people, and long travel especially, it's kind of like, like moving, like you can really like pick at people or get at people, and it gets a little chippy. How was this group? That's kind of an interesting way to get a feel for the group itself and how they're coming along and, the relationships. What would you say about all these new players and just sort of the vibe that you're seeing off the court from them?
Yeah, the closeness is good. The communication between the guys, they enjoy being around each other. Of course, you guys know we got 10 days of practices prior to this trip leading up to it. And so they've had some time to develop that as well. It's been really good just kind of watching them. And of course, I'm trying to pick my spots and get to know some of them that I don't know as well. And support staff is here as well. But you got to keep, other than the distance and the duration of time traveling, this is what we do in athletics, whether we're going to Tulane or we're going to Temple or you name it. We're doing buses and we're doing planes, and you got head coaches and assistant coaches and ADs are schlepping bags all over the place. This is what we do. And so it's just a joy to be able to do it in a really beautiful place. It creates some great memories for our guys.
The basketball itself on the court, I don't know how much you've been able to hang and see that or have conversations with Paul Mills, but what are you sensing from this group? And we can ask Coach Mills this more specifically later, but is there optimism with the early returns on those practice sessions? What's the feeling around the coaching room right now for this group?
Oh, absolutely. I think there's a great feel. And again, I've attended a few practices, and certainly we'll spend a lot of time with these guys and our coaching staff here over the next 9 or 10 days. So it's great. It's also early, right? We'll learn a lot on this trip in terms of rotations and getting guys playing time and seeing where their best spots are. And I'll obviously leave that all up to the coaches, and Paul will be a great source of information for you there. But it's also early, right? I mean, part of the experience that makes great teams great is when you face adversity as well. And so, these games will be a test for sure, just to kind of see what we have and what looks that we like. And then as we get into the fall and practices really ramp up, you start to face some of that adversity. What does the starting lineup start looking like? And that, to me, is really the test of your culture when you start to get into your season.
All right, let's talk a little bit real quick on seeing practices. Kevin Saul, Wichita State Athletic Director, joining us from Greece, which we greatly appreciate. Does it look like, from what you're seeing in practice, that this tempo is going to be elevated maybe from what Shocker fans are used to in the recent era, which has been a slower pace of basketball. I ask that because it's one of the number one questions we get from people when they talk about Mills. Oh, we're so excited that they're going to start running a little bit. Are you getting that vibe from practice, or is it still too early?
Yeah, I certainly don't want to speak for Coach Mills and the staff, and obviously they'll approach every game in a manner that they think can best beat our opponent. But if you look at the roster, it's a really mobile group. It's a group that moves well, and certainly if you look at Coach Mills's history and what he's tried to do at Oral Roberts and what they have done at Baylor, Baylor over the 14 years that he was there. Proved the ability to run and really move quickly, but they also proved the ability to be really efficient in half-court sets as well. So I know he'll be versatile in terms of the approach and what it takes to beat our opponents. I don't think you have to look too far back in Oral Roberts' history to understand that he likes to play fast as well. So I think there will certainly be some elements of that. How much yet is to be determined.
All right, let's switch sports a little bit. I want to ask about the campaign, the Pride on the Prairie, in just a minute, because you guys just put that out there yesterday. But before that, the videos last week come out of the Wilkins Stadium changes. It looks great. What am I looking at as far as the phase of what's changed so far? It's turf, right? There's some good looking paint out there. But what was the change we saw the video of last week?
Yeah, so that was the installation of artificial turf in every area that was previously grass. And so the dirt infield remains the dirt infield and the batter's boxes and home plate area so that we can host NCAA regionals. That was another step in what I will say are certainly needed upgrades to that facility over the last, 16, 18 months. You've seen new batting cages, you've seen a new dugout, you've seen new lights. All of that was really initiated through a conversation that we had with our league because we shared that we wanted to be able to host the American Athletic Conference Championships. And so as we evaluated the facility 18 months ago, the thought process collectively was, well, we needed to get some batting cages. We needed to get a new dugout on the third base side that had a restroom access. We needed lights. And so we did all those things, and I really credit a lot of folks for doing that. This was really the next stage to get artificial turf in there. It solves a lot of problems for us. It's very durable, and we're really looking forward to it. It's consistent, all those things. What you didn't see there, Jacob, that does not constitute phase one of the master planning process for Wilkins Stadium. We hope to, here in the next week to 10 days, have some exciting news regarding our fundraising progress on Wilkins Stadium. But the first phase of that is inclusive of a full indoor practice facility, a full indoor infield that's connected to a team operations building.
It looks good. The video's there. Go Shockers if you want to check that out. Okay, let's talk about what is this. For people, you guys announced a big campaign, the House on the Prairie. So what's the objective here, and what's tangible for people? What do people need to know about this?
Well, I think you're going to see multiple phases from our external unit in terms of collaboration and coordination with our fans, Jacob. And it really started. You might remember us talking last year about some listening sessions that we had. We hosted 4 of those over the course of the summer last year with very different sets of demographics, where we wanted to hear the good, bad, and ugly about the game day experience, fan engagement, all of those elements. We created a list of about 150 unique pieces of feedback, and I think prior to last season, we worked our way through 75 to 80 of those. So that work still continues. And what we've learned throughout that process is we just need to maintain a really strong connection with our fan base. And so our senior associate AD over external, Scott Barnhart, our director of marketing, Connor Phelps, associate AD, Tammy Cutler, Kayla Knight, a lot of folks in our external unit have really thought through maintaining and strengthening that strong connection with our fans. So we want our fans to help define what game day looks like. And so that's what that campaign will be. It's not only a season ticket and single game and mini plan ticket sales campaign, but it's also a campaign to strengthen our game day experience for our fans.
It's the information. You can go to GoShockers.com and get it. So how is that piece of all this going for you guys? You're more than a year in now. We saw, a rowdy Coke Arena with the fanfare and festivities of the TBT and the former players coming back. Are you guys seeing tangible gains in the world of, fundraising and interest boosting, I guess, as we approach this now second full season for you in that chair?
Yeah, I think so. And certainly there are some infrastructure elements that we needed to put in place. I will share with you, very pleased that we were able to, within a matter of months, fully fund the Charles Koch Arena weight room project, about $1 million renovation there. And obviously it's been well documented. We're so appreciative of Fred Van Fleet and Steve and Regine Fellmeyer and the Jacksons and the Ayalas and the Brothertons, those families that just stepped forward and did that very quickly for us so that we could have a brand new state-of-the-art facility for volleyball, women's basketball, and men's basketball before they came back for classes this fall. We've launched a very aggressive facility master planning process. One element of that is Wilkins Stadium. And the first phase of that is $9.25 million. And we are excited soon to announce a significant chunk of that has been fundraised. There'll be more information that comes out on that. And obviously we've got Cessna Stadium going as well, which is about a $52 million project. Phases 1A and 1B total just short of $13 million. The dollars have identified and allocated to that. And so the acquiring of funds and the fundraising element has been going well. And certainly we need to continue to progress there and to deepen and strengthen the resources so that we can move quickly into phase 2 of softball and some of the thoughts that we have about EC. And so we've got a lot of things planned and very pleased so far in terms of our progress.
It's been an interesting and wild ride. Kevin Saul, Wichita State Athletic Director, joining us from Greece as the Shockers are getting ready for some exhibition games and some team bonding, I'm sure. Real quick, we got the non-conference schedule out for men's basketball before we let you go. And we knew for the most part who was on here. We still don't know Myrtle Beach opponents. But what stands out to me on it are Missouri, Kansas State, and Kansas. And how important is it for you to maintain these regional relationships with some of these teams and give the fans the opportunity for that experience at games like that do mean something, I think, to Shocker basketball and the fans that really want to see some of that and have a chance to beat their chest a little bit against maybe their neighbor or whatever it is, that the Shockers are playing these games and it gets you that extra little added excitement.
Yeah, I think, Jacob, you just hit the nail on the head. It's important to us because it's important to our fans. The regional flavor to the non-conference schedule, the strength of that non-conference schedule is really important, not only to our fan base, which makes it important to us, but it's important for the objectives that we have for our schedule. First and foremost, is we want to consistently put forward every year a schedule that gives us an opportunity to be an at-large in the NCAA tournament. And so when you look at this year's schedule, you've got 6 neutral site games, and you'll recall the conversation we had last year about the Oklahoma State game being an Interest Bank Arena for a long time. We have coded that game as we submit our preseason schedules to the NCAA as a home game. And it actually meets the criteria for being a neutral site game, which is good for us because the example last year is if we had called that Oklahoma State game a home game last year, it would have been a quad 2 game because it was a neutral site. It was actually in quad 1. And so having 6 neutral site games certainly helps us in that respect. We will square up against the Jayhawks for the first time in 32 years in the regular season. I know folks are really excited about that. We've got the third of 4 contracted games with Kansas State next year, which will also be in Kansas City. The final game will be in Koch Arena in 24-25. Of course, we finish up a 2-game set with Missouri. We start a 2-game home and home with Western Kentucky. We finish a 2-game road first last year and then home this year with Richmond. We've got old Missouri Valley Conference foe, Southern Illinois. We've got a solid here the last 3 or 4 years. Norfolk State's been a solid club as well. So we feel like we've put together a really good schedule. I know there was some head scratches on the Friends game, and I think that, Jacob, that one accomplishes a couple of things for you. Number one, and you and I talked about this briefly, but number one, there is some strategy to a non-D1 game. When you talk about putting together a schedule for that will accomplish an at-large bid in the NCAA tournament, it actually, the non-D1 game against Friends doesn't count against the net formula. It's not calculated in your net scores. Whereas a game versus a 250 to 360 in the net, like a quad 4 type game, that would count in your net. And there are certainly circumstances where you're better off playing a non-counter than you are playing an institution that might be in that 250 to 350 range. So that's our league has a policy about non-D1s. I had a conversation early. We had a conversation with our league early. We felt like we had picked up enough strength in our schedule to warrant an at-large consideration, provided that we perform well, and the league was agreeable to us picking up a non-D1. It's also the first time we have played Friends in many, many, many decades. So Rob Ramsayer does a good job with that program, and looking forward to some initiatives that we're talking about surrounding that game with Friends. So all in all, really good schedule. It's very competitive, and I think it certainly gives our fans an opportunity to cheer on the Shockers in some cool spots.
Well, and just for perspective for people on Friends, one, there are certainly Friends alumni who are Shocker fans. Cool opportunity for people in the city. And two, we see KU play the D2 regionals all the time. So it's not like I'm surprised their heads. I was like, that's a cool early non-con to get, somebody in the city. It's been Newman in the past. So that's why some of that stuff happens. Kevin, be good in Greece. Just a reminder to everybody, the Shockers will play their first exhibition over there. Pronounce it for me again. Thessaloniki.
You got it. You nailed it.
Thessaloniki All-Stars, 10 a.m. Friday. Woo! Good luck with the pronouncers over there.
It'll be good. So we've got Willie Schwanke on the road with us on our creative side video. Weston Pletcher's our new SID for men's basketball. I'll probably I'll be both of their assistants and try and shoot a little video and send them some things. So we're trying to do pre-game previews, post-game recaps with some highlight packages as well. So we'll try and get as much as we can out via social media this week.
Yeah, that's the avenue, and we'll try to get to amplify some of that. So I know people want to see these guys in action, so we'll do that as well, and we'll take a look at it here as best we can on the radio as well. Of course, we'll have some of that on 12 News as well throughout these 3 games out there. Enjoy the beach, safe travels, and we'll get a full recap here in a couple weeks when you guys get back home.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Jacob. Appreciate you having us on the show, and go Shockers.
There goes Kevin Saul. We really do appreciate it greatly that he was able to connect from Greece there. Wasn't sure how that worked. Time changes, technology, and all that. And Shocker fans, it does sound like they are safely away from the fires and some of the crazy stuff that's happening out there. We're going to take a quick break. Tommy will jump back in. We'll look back at some of that. We'll look ahead. Major League Baseball trade deadline grades. What do we think? Who got the bestest? And who? I've got a surprise one for you, Tommy, on who I think nailed it at the trade deadline. We'll see if you agree. That's coming up next on Sports Daily. Just a second here, Tommy. I forgot Mega Millions drawing last night. Let me make sure I didn't win $1 billion here.
I really hope you did. Really hope you did.
I did not. No billion for this guy. In fact, I didn't get one dang number. But, I'd rather get them all than just one. So, no worries.
If you had won, would you have
We'll get
been
him the
willing
next
to-
time.
Would you have been willing to share a little bit with me if you had won?
It's
$1 billion. Like you could, that's a lot of money, right?
After taxes
You could
and the
spare a
cash
little
out,
bit.
after taxes and the cash out, it's probably more like 250 million. But maybe I get. You know what I can get you? A couple free iced tea cards to HTO.
I'm sure you could. Could.
We get your hands on those. All right, let's give some grades at the Major League Baseball trade deadline. We've also got some Chiefs audio from Travis Kelce and an interview with Mitch Holthus that you'll hear only here coming up as well in this hour. Our appreciation to Kevin Saul for jumping on from Greece. Interesting stuff there. If you have or you got into that late, you can jump in and take a listen to that on the Odyssey app, where Jad will have it available for you. Tommy, who you think did the best job at the Major League Baseball trade deadline?
I'm going to go with the Rangers. I think the Rangers probably did the best job of acquiring talent and going all in on that side. But then honestly, if you're looking at it from the perspective of who benefits the most long-term, probably the Mets. Of course, they parted with Verlander and Scherzer. They made a couple of other trades. So I think both of those teams probably, in my mind, they were the most aggressive ones. They probably did the best job too.
So I was going to say the Mets is my sort of surprise because they were sellers. I think that if the economics of baseball never slaps you in the face and why it's like frustrating to be a Royals fan. So the Mets go all in free agency, which of course only a handful of teams can do every year. Doesn't work. So the Mets basically get to pay a bunch of money to trade 40-year-olds and retool their farm system in one season. Right? Like, so the Mets now have totally retooled their farm system, and they'll go into next year with the same free agent aggression. Or maybe they wait one more year, but they will become it sucks when you're a fan of a team that can't do that. And the rules are almost different that Major League Baseball teams play under. The other sports aren't like that. It's very strange. But the Mets, who have been one of the more disappointing teams in baseball, fans of the Mets had a great offseason, right? All this excitement, it didn't work out. Well, now if you're a Mets fan today, well, you can be pretty excited again because they went and got, top-end prospects, as much as top-end prospects are ever traded now. Why? Because they traded big-time names, but they also ate a lot of the money. And that's why, the Astros and then the Rangers were willing to, give up what they did. Real quick on the Astros, if I'm an Astros fan, I'm excited to get Verlander. Don't get me wrong if I'm an Astros fan. But they basically traded one extra prospect for what the Rangers and the Astros trade from the Mets perspective were almost the same, right? They trade the player and eat a ton of the money for some control. But the Astros, I feel like, gave up more in the prospect end. Now, the Rangers was a little bit higher end of prospect, but the Astros gave up two of them. So it was really interesting to see that. I think that, when you mentioned the Rangers, and I agree, by the way, it's because they also added Jordan Montgomery, and they also jumped the gun and added Aroldis Chapman. So they basically got two starters. You would imagine if the Rangers reach the postseason that those will be two of their top four starters in the postseason. That's significant. They also got two bullpen arms, and they'll get Jacob deGrom back next year, by the way. So they're looking good at the deadline, certainly. The Angels are the real wild card, aren't they? Like the Angels, you'd like to call winners at the trade deadline, but if they don't keep Ohtani and they don't make the postseason, were they really winners at the trade deadline, or did they make a horrible decision?
Yeah, the jury's still out on how that's all going to end this season. But right now, I'm not convinced that the moves that they made are going to get them over the hump to make it to the playoffs. That's a really, really difficult division with the Rangers and the Astros and
the Mariners.
And the Mariners, I know they're going all in. They're pushing all their chips to the middle of the table. They got CJ Cron. They got Randall Grichuk. They acquired Mike Moustakas is there. I just don't. Giolito. I just don't know if that if that's the right move to make. And I understand the thought process. Take Ohtani off the market, go all in, try to make the playoffs, increase your chances of re-signing him. But that's a lot of ifs. And you knew going into the trade deadline that if you traded away Shohei Ohtani, the Angels were going to get just an absolute bounty in return for him, like a bountiful return of multiple prospects, unlike we've ever seen before, to set them up long term. So if this doesn't work out in the short term and they're mortgaging their future for this, and Ohtani doesn't come back and they don't make the playoffs, they're clearly the biggest losers in all of this.
Well, here's why I won't agree with that completely, because I do think, based on what Ohtani has said, that he was pleased to see them do this. So at minimum, it probably increased their chances to some degree of getting him to stay there in the offseason. That in and of itself, even if they do it, may have been worth the risk. Honestly, he's that kind of player. So that's interesting. All right, let's get a quick call here on the trade deadline. Mike on the line. Jumps on the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. Mike, welcome in. What's on your mind?
Hey, guys. Hey, it's cool to be on the air. Do you guys think that the MLB trade deadline being scheduled for yesterday was scheduled too early or maybe too late in the 2023 MLB season? And do you guys think that there should be a trade deadline each season at all? Should teams be able to play, be able to trade players for the whole season? Thanks, guys.
The trade deadline's right where it usually is. It's weird that it comes on an election day again, but I don't have a problem with August 1st. I do think that they could push it probably 2 more weeks, Tommy, because or at least consider it now with the extra wild card. It does have, I heard Chris Young, the Rangers general manager, on their broadcast sort of yesterday, just like as like a postmortem almost. And he said one of the real challenges is teams don't know if they're buyers or sellers. And so with this extra wild card, it almost lets people, it almost lets hope linger, and it would be easier, I think, to be a seller if more teams knew they were buyers or sellers, right? So in 2 weeks, like the Padres are a good example of this. So the Padres were, by all accounts, strongly considering being sellers. And then they sweep the Rangers right out of the break, and now all of a sudden they don't, right? Maybe in 1 or 2 more weeks, they're able to more clearly decide which side of that they're on. So I do think you could think about it. I don't know the intricacies of why it's this time of year. I don't know. I do think there needs to be one because it protects to some degree the integrity of the game and makes, I do think there needs to be a trade deadline for sure. But I would be okay if they considered pushing it a week or two now with the extra wild card, keeping more teams in the mix and making it harder to decide if you're a buyer or seller. I'd be on board with that.
I'm okay where it is right now. I mean, it's a matter of tradition. I get you've added an extra wild card spot. I like it being right at the end of July. It gives you something to look forward to in the short term after the All-Star break. You get done with the All-Star game, and then it's like full speed ahead, a couple of more weeks
competing with
until the trade
if
deadline.
you waited. It's a good point.
Yeah, and it's a longer time after the All-Star break to sit and ponder what's going to happen. And I don't know about you, and I'm not advocating for it to be sooner by any means, but the last week or so, I'm like, let's go. Like, we're hearing speculation a lot.
Yeah. But that's why. That's what I mean. The extra wild card is why you don't get movement until the very end, because teams can't decide if they're buyers or sellers. So I kind of like that though, honestly, because it's sort of a coin flip for some teams, and then you can look at it post-mortem and be like, oh, that was a good decision, or that was a really bad one. It's fun. So Chris Young brought that up yesterday. He was like, they asked him about the Aroldis Chapman deal, making it so early. And he's like, guys, you have to, like, when you look at this stuff, and Chris Young, by the way, is the same Chris Young that pitched for the Royals in those World Series runs. Fantastic dude. One of my favorite people in that locker room was Chris Young, by the way. Just insightful all the time, generous with his time, very nice, respectable, really appreciated him as a player and now as a general manager too. But something that he brought up was on the Aroldis Chapman deal. He's like, you gotta understand how much credit we need to give like our players and coaches for being in a position that early that made us feel like we could do a move like that early. And what he means there, and we don't ever think about this, I don't think, as fans, like we're always like, well, why wouldn't you go get somebody if you're going to trade for them so that you get more time with them? Well, the answer to that is, what if you do that and things go sideways and you're not going to make the playoffs? You shouldn't have made that trade in the first place then. Right. So and I'm guilty of this. I'm like, God, why wouldn't you go trade for, XYZ player a long time ago? And that's the answer, because there is risk in doing that, and that you may not be good enough to make the postseason. And now you've traded essentially for nothing. So that's an interesting part of it too, as far as waiting until the last minute to make a trade. Sort of cuts both ways, right? You got to have teams that are sellers decide they're going to be sellers, but you got to have teams that are buyers be confident enough that they're going to be good enough to make the postseason.
And that was the root of the drama and intrigue yesterday. It's changed a little bit. I remember it wasn't that long ago, and it was before the extra wildcard spot came into play. When the trade deadline, I mean, you knew that more than likely there were going to be multiple big-time players being moved. And now it's less about that. And you still had a handful, Scherzer, Verlander. You had a handful of big name players move, but really no superstars move. Like, even outside of Ohtani, it wasn't like there were really any other major, like, earth-shattering shakeups in Major League Baseball this season. So the drama shifts more from who is going to be traded to will teams make moves, and if they do, what are they going to do? So I like that a lot. I like the way that has kind of shifted, because it does provide the intrigue all the way up to the deadline. Before, you had to like cross your fingers, and like, if there was a superstar, like, will he or won't he be traded, like that. And then once they were, then it was like, okay, well, that part's done. This, like, up until the very bitter end, teams are deciding if they're going for it or not. And I think that the timing of that is perfect.
Yeah, I'm okay. I think I could be on board with waiting one more week, but you do get closer to football and run the risk of not having as much attention on it for your sport too. But an interesting question there for Mike. We appreciate the call. IHOP hotline is open, 869-1240. Let's take a break so we've got time to get through this Travis Kelce audio from Chiefs camp yesterday. We'll check in on Chiefs camp a little bit here as we make our way through this. What day is it? Wednesday, midweek edition of Sports Daily. It's Albracht and Castor. Jad Chambers producing. We'll come right back. Congratulations to all our giveaway winners. You know what? Let's give away some WinSurge vouchers right now. We'll do it. First caller to 869-1240 on that IHOP hotline will get a 4-pack of WinSurge vouchers. Game of your choice. Choices are dwindling here as we make our way down the home stretch of the minor league baseball season. But you can go courtesy of us here at Sports Daily and KFH. We'll get that winner. We'll come back. Chiefs camp next on Sports Daily.
$97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Brought to you by Forever Lawn. Hi, I'm Tom Connors. Went to Mark Patrick's hypnosis seminar February 6, 2019. Nothing worked before. Left there and never smoked again. Amazing. Easy, affordable, and guaranteed. A year later, with my wife Michelle, attended Mark Patrick's weight loss seminar. She lost 18 pounds and I lost 43 in 8 weeks.
It's true. We smoked 2 packs a day and nothing worked until Mark Patrick hypnosis. Now we're losing weight together, eating healthy, full on half the food, crazy, enjoying and exercising. Who would have believed Mark Patrick hypnosis really works?
It's amazing. I can breathe again, my blood pressure went down, and I've got so much energy.
So much energy.
And look great.
Stop smoking, lose weight now without cravings, irritability, or money back. Early bird special, only $49.99 guaranteed. Join Mark Patrick's hypnosis seminar and lose the weight, stop smoking, feel great for only $49.99 guaranteed. Saturday, August 12th at the Spring Hill Suites by Marriott Wichita Airport in Wichita. Weight loss seminar, 11 a.m. Registration, 10:30 a.m. Stop smoking seminar, 2 p.m. Learn more at markpatrickseminars.com. Where can you get the best pizza, pasta, hoagies, and salads? Pizza John's in Derby. Since 1969, families have been dining at Pizza John's. Stop in at 208 South Baltimore Monday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. or order online. Pizza John's, purveyors of round meals and flat snacks.
McCurdy Real Estate and Auction is proud to present our August 10th multi-property live stream auction event with online-only bidding. The auction features 22 properties and will take place on McCurdy.com at 5:30 p.m. August 10th. Our multi-property auctions provide a unique opportunity to bid on great single-family homes, rental investments, and even multifamily property. Make sure to visit the open house where all properties will be open to view and tour this Sunday, August 6th from 1 to 5 p.m. For details and pictures of all 22 properties, visit McCurdy.com, where our favorite word is sold.
It's the 11th annual Shriners Sportsman event, Saturday, August 5th at the Cessna Activity Center in Wichita. 100 guns will be raffled by makers such as Browning, Sig Sauer, Ruger, Beretta, plus pistols, rifles, shotguns, and more. Your ticket to the event is your raffle ticket and includes free food from noon till 3. For a complete listing of all the raffle and auction items, visit ShrinersGunRaffle.com. Don't miss out on all the great deals and fun. We'll see you Saturday, August 5th, noon to 6 at the Cessna Activity Center in Wichita, Kansas.
This is an important notice to consumers facing $10,000 or more in credit card debt, medical bills, or other unsecured debt. You may not be required to pay it all back because there are special programs now in effect that will significantly reduce the amount you will owe if you qualify. This is not bankruptcy or a debt consolidation loan. These programs, which the credit card companies like to keep secret, exist to aid American consumers struggling with overwhelming credit card debt by offering tremendous savings and real debt relief. Accredited Debt Relief has established a special hotline for you to call and learn what savings you qualify for. They've helped qualify consumers with over $1 billion in debt and are A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau. So don't wait. Get the relief you need during these hard economic times. For this free information, call the Accredited Debt Relief Hotline now. Call 800-873-7171. 800-873-7171. 800-873-7171.
Toppers Plus Truck Accessories has moved to a new location at 333 Northwest Street. We're ready to hook you up for trailer season, whether you're towing your boat, cycle, RV, or lawn equipment. Toppers Plus has receiver hitches, goosenecks, fifth wheel hitches, brake controllers, and trailer wiring. Choose from top brands like B&W hitches made in Kansas or Reese, current and draw type. Hitches matter. Get trailer season ready at Toppers Plus. New location, 333 Northwest Street or toppersplusks.com.
Make your truck work for you.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online? Just go to 4hims.com/joy. Through Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and trusted generic alternatives to the name brands at up to 95% off. That's right. Get generic for Viagra, the same active ingredient as brand name Viagra, but for 95% less. It's the same medication, still prescribed by a licensed medical provider, but with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, 4hims.com/joy. That's 4hims.com/joy for your free online visit. FORHIMS.com/JOY.
It's time to get back to the sports talk.
All right, let's do this thing. Go!
Sports Daily is on KFH.
All right, welcome back in. Sports Daily, everybody, right here on KFH. Congratulations to Mark for winning our HTO giveaway today, and Brian for winning our Win Surge tickets. You'll have chances to win every day here on Sports Daily. Glad to be able to do that for you here. Stay cool out there, everybody. Let's talk a little NFL news, Tommy. We'll bounce around a little bit. The most significant, I think, injury update yesterday came last night. Cooper Kupp walked off the field, something with his hamstring. It's being reported today. Adam Schefter, I believe, has it, and probably others by now, that it looks like the Rams are going to be okay here, and Cooper Kupp should be ready and just fine.
Yeah, that's a big deal. I mean, obviously he exited last season with an injury, and coming off of that, he is getting older. He's been incredibly effective during his time with Los Angeles, but I mean, that had it been something significant, that would have been a major, major blow, not only for the Rams, but also probably his future career.
So Cooper Kupp before last year, by the way, he's been relatively durable in the NFL. He's missed games. Most wide receivers do, but it's not like he's got a long career history of these things. So we'll see. We'll see what he can do. He's certainly everything to the Rams right now, maybe the most important player on that team. All right, let's jump back over to Chiefs camp then, Tommy. And we mentioned earlier that, Wharton is there now off the PUP list, and I'm sure there's some posturing to that with Chris Jones. Again, back to what I've said now for a while, I don't think that we can just write this in at Penn that this deal's going to get done. It seems weird to me that it's still not. I think it's going to, but we just need to consider, what ifs here if this thing gets really ugly and messy. Is we're 2 weeks into training camp now, and we still don't have Chris Jones on the field.
I think it might be part posturing, but I also think it might be part the Chiefs are kind of desperate, with interior linemen on the defense, right? So I think it can kind of be both at the same time. They can show, Tershawn Wharton coming onto the field, wearing pads, saying they're going to activate him from the PUP list, and that might send a message. But then it's also, hey, we really, really need some help, at that position as a defensive lineman. So there were questions about whether or not Wharton would be ready to go for week 1, or even, missing a handful of weeks into the regular season. Obviously, if you're a Chiefs fan, you're still not comfortable with Tershawn Wharton taking over for Chris Jones, but you're probably you feel a little bit better about him than you do the other guys that they have on the roster.
Every day that this goes on, I get just a little bit more uncomfortable with this. The fact that it's not done still, that we thought it would be done a long time ago, all these things. It all does make me just a little bit uncomfortable. All right. Mitch Holthus is providing us, and the Chiefs are providing us over on Steve and Ted, some exclusive audio every day of his sit-down conversations with various people in the organization. Travis Kelce is who Mitch chatted with recently. Jad's got us a cut of that conversation. Kelsey's been interesting at camp this year, a little feisty in his old age, perhaps. It's hot. I get it. But let's listen into some of that conversation Mitch Holthus had with Travis Kelce.
It's go time. We know, the past is the past at this point. We got our eyes set on this year, and it's exciting. It's exciting, when you go out and you get one, there's a lot of energy just to be around the guys again. And with that being said, I think Coach Reed and, the front office, everybody that's been involved with this organization over the past couple of years has kind of set the tone on, the work ethic that we show, and from day one. And day one's already started, so we're on the grind to get this thing again.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty standard stuff, right? They're trying to repeat. They're trying to continue this absurd expectation that they've set for themselves. And Tommy, I think that's fair, right? What do you do? Like, how do you stay motivated in these times? And I think it's on your individuals leading the way to do that. Tom Brady always did it for New England, right? And you hear former players talk about that, and nobody wanted to let him down and all these things. Mahomes, I think, has that same quality, where the Chiefs are lucky is they have it in Mahomes. They have it in Travis Kelce. They have it in Andy Reid. And every coach has it. They have it in Chris Jones if he's going to be there. But they've got several of these veterans that have been there a long time now, where it's just this expectation. And I don't think there's any player that's been a part of this that you would have to worry about any sort of apathy setting in.
Well, it's really easy to say that, we want to repeat, and we, last year is last year and we're on to this one. Like, that's really easy to say, but it becomes a little bit more difficult to do. It just comes down to whether or not these players continue to have the appetite, to go out and put in the work to make it happen. I think they do. That's what Andy Reid expects. That's why this team has been so good over the last half of a decade, and, continuing on even before Patrick Mahomes. So they've got it, that it's built into them. That's the culture. We've always heard about, quote, the Patriot way, right? And like, that was how that entire dynasty was built. There's something to be said for what has been built in Kansas City. And when I hear those guys talk, like I said, it's easy to hear those words, but I don't think it's lip service. I mean, I think that they are absolutely dedicated to the craft of going in and repeating again, and knowing that it's so difficult to repeat as NFL champions. It hasn't been done since the Patriots, like 20 years ago. So, I mean, that's motivation, I think, on its own.
Well, and even as good as they've been lately, they've got 2 Super Bowls, right? What are we looking at now? Is it a 5-year window here?
4-year span. Yeah.
Yeah. So It is. I mean, the best team that's clearly the best team. And I think people are more willing to admit that now maybe than they had been, I don't know, last year coming into this point. Like, you're just probably not going to find anybody that wouldn't power rank the Chiefs 1, right? Whether or not they win it. Maybe the Eagles, who the Chiefs narrowly defeated in the Super Bowl last year, who got significantly better, I think, this offseason. It's an interesting place to be. There are so many things that go into it. There are so many business decisions that have to be made that are really difficult to make, a la Tyreek Hill, a la Chris Jones at this point, a la Tyrann Mathieu. Like, just example after example after example, Orlando Brown. Like, it's just over and over and over again we see this, except with the guy you just heard from, Travis Kelce, and Patrick Mahomes, who are perfectly willing, it seems like, to just sort of be there and enjoy this ride and, be Andy Reid's fountain of youth to some degree. So Chiefs camp, nothing else really standing out, I don't think, at this point from Chiefs camp. That news a little bit trickling in here and there, but of course we're all just waiting on the big one. We're all just waiting on Chris Jones. There's nothing, there's nothing else really to care about other than making sure people aren't injured, right? Have you seen any, real quick before we take this last break, have you seen any of the videos of Deuce Vaughn, Tommy, at Cowboys camp?
Yeah, I have. And of course the news, what was it, earlier this week, that Ronald Jones suspended for a couple of games, right?
Yeah,
So
that was,
Deuce
he
Vaughn
says
is
it's
now
for heart medicine. That's weird. I'm not going to really.
Yeah. Well, but regardless, he's been suspended. So the depth chart right now is Tony Pollard and Deuce Vaughn. So I think that there's an opportunity here for Deuce Vaughn to come in and start the season and actually get some meaningful snaps.
I still think there's a chance they re-sign Zeke Elliott, by the way. So anyway, the Deuce Vaughn, if you find the videos though, looks like he looks short at K-State, right? It is an interesting thing to see him next to NFL players. And I don't know what that's going to look like in a game, but I cannot wait for it.
The Cowboys have talked about how that actually can be a benefit because the defense can't see him. He's hiding behind the lineman. So, I mean, I do think that's going to be fun to see how they disguise him and make him successful.
I think they're going to use him. I don't look, Deuce Vaughn's never going to line up and carry it 20 times in the NFL, but I absolutely think they're going to use him. And I'd have to go back and look at Mike McCarthy's career to know, like, has he ever really utilized a gadget player? I can't remember one. I mean, Randall Cobb, I suppose, to some degree was gadget, but he was a big time receiver at one point too. Don't forget. So I
didn't they kind of use
Miles
Miles Austin in that way a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah,
Kinda.
maybe. Deuce is unique. And I think that what we've thought all along is that it's not a detriment, but a skill set that'll keep him in the league is going to play through. People covering Cowboys camp have loved him. 869-1240, IHOP hotline. Thanks for listening. We'll be right back. Tell you what's on tap the rest of the day.
Join Mark Patrick.
All right, that's it for us. Appreciate everybody joining us on the program. Thanks for listening on KFH and on our free Odyssey app. Thanks for watching on our video stream, Facebook, YouTube, soon to be Twitch, we think. Appreciate everybody jumping in that way. Our thanks to Kevin Saul, Wichita State Athletic Director, for joining us from Greece. Jim Rome. After us, Bob and Jeff, 2 to 4, CBS Sports Radio regular programming until 7 o'clock. Royals taking on the Mets. Try extend that win streak. Here we go, baby. Let's get that thing done. Tommy, enjoy the day.
Sounds good. We'll see you guys back here tomorrow.
For Tommy and Chad, I'm Jacob. We'll see you Thursday.